All right, let's now zoom out and talk about political violence. When your followers don't have any idea what's going on, it is easy to lie to them. Donald Trump is panicking because no matter how many times he says it, we have the data, we have the receipts. Most political violence in the United States for decades has been right wing. I don't care what the political orientation or catalyst is for violence. I'm against it. If you commit an act of violence, you are wrong. I want you prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law and punished in accordance with what due process would indicate. But we have to acknowledge where the lion's share of the violence is coming from. The new one that they are going with is in 2025, there has been more left-wing political violence than ever. Now, this is painfully stupid if you examine the facts, which we're going to do. But Donald Trump is probably assuming that his followers aren't smart enough to fact check, aren't astute enough to know the difference. And I hate to admit it, but Donald Trump may be right. Axios is actually helping Donald Trump to pull this off. Let's explore. Axios put out an article called Study, Left-Wing Terrorism Climbs to 30-Year High. And at the top of the article, there's a chart which has left and right-wing domestic terrorism by year. The yellow bars are left-wing. The gray bars are right-wing. Okay. An arrow points to 2025. And there's a larger yellow bar than a gray bar, meaning more left-wing terror, domestic terror, political violence in 2025 than right-wing. Now, let's be serious here. I want to be serious for a moment. Let's actually think through this like adults, okay? Superficially, you can visually see there were larger yellow bars for left-wing terror for sure in 2020 and 2022 than in 2025. So we already should be saying, wait a second, record left-wing terror, there was more in 2020. There was more in 2022, still a minority, still mostly right-wing. But it's true that only partway through the year, we have some more left-wing terror this year than in some years. But the second question is, where is the data from? Well, the data is from CSIS. That's a good source. We often cite the CSIS data on domestic terror. If you go to the underlying report from CSIS, you find a different chart. And you see that under left-wing terror attack and plots, as a percentage of all attacks and plots, you do see a spike. But this measures something completely different. What this is measuring is the percentage of attacks this year that are from the left. And by the way, the data only goes through July 4th. That was 3 months ago. We had this terrible right-wing attack over the weekend at the Mormon church in Michigan. Now, why do we care about 7 months in 2025 when the real story of this study is that, like every other study, it confirms, if we put up the original chart again, most domestic terror in the United States is right-wing. In every single year, the right-wing domestic terror blows out of the water the left-wing domestic terror. Now, there's another problem with this editorialization of the report that MAGA is doing, which is that CSIS is careful to note left-wing violence, even when it happens, on average, is less lethal, it's less organized, it's smaller in scale, and it kills fewer people. It's less deadly. Sadly, is the average MAGA going to see the headline from Axios and do this sort of analysis? I think not. But it does tell us a lot about how desperate they are that they uncritically push this article when the underlying report says the opposite. If you appreciate this type of analysis, please make sure to like this video on YouTube, make sure to share this video on YouTube, and make sure that you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/The David Pakman Show.